Hello everyone and welcome back. This is Laura, aka Crafty Not Shifty, and I'm here with my 10 cards, 1 kit video for the Love from Lizi August 2018 card kit. First of all, on screen you can see right now I am making up one of the teeny tiny envelopes. These are very sweet and they come as little pop-out sheets, and you just need to burnish the score lines. Just go ahead and reinforce them with your bone folder and add some double-sided adhesive along the edges where you want to stick the envelope down. And you could use these to make teeny tiny cards, but I'm going to use it as an accent on my card today. So I'm taking this piece that would fit nicely on the front of the card, and I'm actually going to use my Tombow glue to stick just part of that down to the envelope. But I've added glue all over this piece because once this glue dries, it actually works as a repositionable adhesive. So it will be permanently stuck where it touches the paper, and then any part that air dries will be repositionable. So I'm setting that to one side and I'll work on my card base. So I'm added double-sided sticky tape to my card base, and then I'm using a black panel and I'm covering that entirely with this piece. You could make a black card base, but this way the inside is white so it's easier to write on. I've then got a piece of the shiny foil stars, and you will have seen in the unboxing videos and the sneak peeks for this kit, it is super shiny. There is foil in gold and silver on almost every single piece that comes in the kit, and it's really beautiful to work with. So I've got this down to be slightly smaller than 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. All but one of my cards measure this size this month. And then I'll just place that down, leaving a black border around the edge. So I've also picked out this piece that has a checkbox list, and I'm going to cover that up because I don't want to use this as a list. I want to use it as an insert inside my envelope. So I've just got another piece of that star paper. The paper is A4 in size, the pattern paper this month, so I have got a ton of this left. I also have the bumper add-on, so when I say a ton, I really mean a ton. I think I have more left than I've actually received in card kits previously, so there is so much in here. Now I went ahead and used the stickers that came in the bumper add-on, and these are the larger alphabet stickers. There are smaller alphabets that are included as part of the kit, so you could definitely recreate this with those. And I just spelt out the word hello. I've added double-sided foam tape to the back of my envelope just to give it a little bit of dimension and just help that pop off the top of the card. And then I'm going to line that up once I'm happy with the placement and press that down and put this card inside. I think it's really sweet to have this card on top of the card, and I'm just testing this double-sided stick that is now removable or repositionable adhesive. So it will hold the flap in place, but it doesn't hold it down permanently, and you can lift that up and then lift out the card on the inside. So that's card 1 complete. Let's move on to card number 2. So for this one I'm using a piece of vellum, and my favourite way to stick down vellum is to use a Xyron sticker machine, and this applies a really nice thin, even coat of clear adhesive along the back of your vellum piece, so when you stick it down you don't have to worry about any of that adhesive showing through, which can be tricky with a vellum piece. Another way to do this would be to use a glue pen and apply the glue only behind the foiled sections, but this way is just so quick and easy and it works for all vellum that I've used. I really like this pattern. And strangely enough, one of my friends is moving house at the moment, and she sent me a picture of the wallpaper that she plans to buy for one of her rooms, and I think it is this exact same pattern as this piece here. So I think this will work perfectly as a housewarming card for her when she does move in. So here I have a scrap of white cardstock, and I've prepped it with my anti-static tool, and I'm using Versamark ink, which is a clear sticky ink, all over the back of this giant hexagon Let's Celebrate stamp. I was really excited to use this when I saw this in the card kit reveal, and I was looking forward to using it with the embossing powder, and it did not disappoint. I'll show you it here. So because this is a large stamp, I pressed it down, and then because the ink is sticky, I was actually able to lift up that entire piece and turn it over and just rub gently with my fingers on the back of the paper to make sure I had a really nice even coverage of the ink. So here's that embossing powder. It looks like a really beautiful powder as you pour it on, and I mentioned in my unboxing video that I was looking forward to working with this and seeing what it looked like when it was melted. And I've left this entire clip in because I think it's just so beautiful to watch this powder melt. It turns from this lovely silver powder to just the most beautiful, glossy, bright silver. I think this is actually my favourite silver embossing powder that I've ever used, so I think I'll be using it a lot in future videos. So I kind of played with it for a while. I was fascinated with how it would capture the light, and then I went ahead and trimmed that out. Here I have a strip of a polka dot pattern piece, and I just wanted to add something else to the background to separate the background from the foreground, and I felt like this strip of cardstock worked really well. So I'll trim off the excess and then add a whole bunch of foam adhesive onto the back. If you watch my videos, you'll know exactly which brand this is. This is the Scrapbook Adhesive foam squares, and they are my favourite. If you ever see me using a foam square, it's going to be these ones, or I'll be using my Big Mama roll of Scotch tape. So to finish this one off, I wanted to bring in the Nuvo drops and just add a little black drop anywhere where those lines intersect. And you'll see here I kind of made a mistake with this piece and wiped it so elegantly on the back of my hand to get rid of that. I will clean it off, you won't have to look at that for the rest of this video. But I just wiped it away quickly and used my sand eraser gently to remove any of the mess. And I don't think it looks too bad, I don't think you can tell too much, and I think whoever receives this card will be grateful to have a handmade card and won't mind one bit. So on to the next card. Here I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of diagonal striped gold foil, and I'm going to entirely cover my card base with this piece. I love this piece, and I think it reminds me of Christmas presents and wrapping paper with that diagonal stripe. I just think it's really festive and really elegant as well. So I have a smaller piece of the same paper. This is one of the offcuts, and I'm going to stick that down on top. I really like the way it looks with the diagonal stripes kind of going in different directions, and I was trying to decide exactly where I wanted that before sticking it down. And then, of course, I have a piece of paper on top of another piece of paper, so that means peel-offs. One of my favourite things to do is outline the edges of where my paper intersects with the peel-offs, and I'm a really big fan of these. I've mentioned previously in a video that I had seen products like this when I'd been at craft fairs, and I hadn't really been too interested in them, and then when Lizi started to manufacture hers and include them in the kit with all of the colours and the widths and the sparkle, I was hooked. Here I have this tag. It's got a diamond with hello in the centre, and I added some foam squares onto the back of that. To finish this off, I wanted to use one of the bows. These came as part of the bumper pack, I believe, so they were an add-on, and I'm just using a pencil to curl the bow sections, and then I'll use a glue dot to fold those into place, and then I'll also curl the edges of the tails of the bow. These particular glue dots are quite large. You could use smaller glue dots, or you could use double-sided sticky tape if that's all you have. I do think it would be a little bit tricky if you used wet glue, because you'd have to wait for quite a while for it to dry, but you could definitely hold it in place with some tweezers or a clamp or something like that. So I'm using one more glue dot to stick the tail to the base, and then another glue dot to stick the bow on top. And I think this bow adds something really special to this piece. It's really dimensional and really pretty. I'm not sure it would mail very well, but I think it's perfect for a padded envelope or to hand out in person. So if you watch my unboxing, you'll know that I got the add-on of the sequins, so the full-size bag. Every month in the kits we get a sample size, but the full-size bag is also available to purchase, so I could quite happily and guilt-free dump the entire sample size bag of sequins inside of this stamp pocket. I've also added a piece of cardstock, and I'm actually going to make a full card shaker. This is something I've never made before, but I have a fuse tool, which is a tool that heats up right at the tip, and you're able to actually melt and fuse plastics such as these plastic page protectors. And it's a really great way of making a large shaker card. So I've heated everything up and I have my ruler here. I'm working on a craft mat. It's not the best thing to work to. You will notice that as I peel this up, my mat has slightly melted. You would be much better working on a heat-resistant surface or glass. So I peeled that away, and there I have a full shaker, and everything is sealed up and I haven't had to use any adhesive and worry about that showing through. So I'm adding a whole bunch of glue or double-sided tape onto my card base because this piece is actually quite heavy, so I wanted to make sure that it doesn't go flying off the front of the card when somebody picks this up and shakes it, which is naturally what you're going to do when you've got a shaker card like this. Then for the front, I wanted to add this little piece here, this bright pop of silver against the background of the gold that helps bring in the colours of the sequin mix. And it's so shiny. Working with this kit was quite difficult to capture on film because there's a whole bunch of glare and reflection with the lights, but I think I just about managed. I've also got these hexagon mirror pieces, these double-sided sticky mirror tiles, and I'm just placing those down on the card. And I did find that as I was picking these up and positioning them, I left fingerprints on them, but I just did the exact same thing that you would do with a normal mirror and buffed them away with a microfiber cloth. I keep a whole bunch of those cloths in my craft room, and they come in handy for so many different things. So you'll just see here, I'll just take an edge of a clean cloth and just buff each of those pieces, and I actually even buffed the Just For You sentiment piece in the middle as well. So there you can see all of that shine, and it's really fun and interesting to have that full-sized shaker. So for this next card, I'm going to do some white heat embossing on white watercolour paper. So you can't really see what's going on here, but I repeat stamped this image using my VersaFine clear ink and then poured on white embossing powder and heat set that. I'm then using some plain clear water and adding some brush powder on top. So these are pigmented, they work as paints, so you mix them with water, or you can add them on top of water here, or you can use them dry and then add water on top or use a water brush. They're similar to the Colour Burst products that you may have heard of, and they're just really great and fun to work with. There are so many different kind of pigments within each colour that makes up the final colour. You can see with that green there's all different variations of the colour. The black in particular is really great to work with, but I didn't use that on this card here. And I haven't taped this piece down, so you can see it's kind of trying its best to peel up, so when necessary I'm just using the end of my paintbrush to hold that down in place. Now I've just got some water, so I've got a wet paintbrush, and I'm just using that to help spread the colour around and make sure that there's nice edge-to-edge coverage with this piece. Anywhere where I've got that heat embossed images, you can see that the embossing powder resists the ink and that image kind of shines through nice and bright and white, and I'm just going to keep going with this and adding more water, mixing everything up and just making sure that I've got nice coverage on this piece and it's really kind of bright and shiny and fun with these dual tones. I was having so much fun just working with this and adding more powder, adding more water and kind of mixing everything around that I kept going for quite a while, so it was a good job I'd used a nice high quality watercolour paper because it accepted all of this water and all of the kind of fussing of me playing with this piece, and the paper didn't start to pill up at all. I did make a lovely mess all over my non-stick craft sheet, and you'll see just as I pick this up I've got a lovely pool of colour that's left behind. I just used my cloth to sop up any of the edges along this piece, and then I set it to one side to dry. I didn't want to lose all of that lovely colour that I had on my craft sheet, so I actually just brought in another piece of paper. This, as you can see, soaks up all that water straight away. This is just regular cardstock, and I'm just pressing that into all of that ink and making sure I've covered all of the background pieces, and then I can actually keep this for another card, so I feel like I haven't wasted any of that colour that I dropped onto my surface. Once everything was completely dry, I cut along an angle across my patterned piece, and I cut twice so I had a thin strip that I discarded, and I'm going to replace that strip with the super shiny silver that you can see just on the right hand side. Here I'm stamping the You're a Star, and I'm going to cover that in the silver dollar embossing powder again. And I love the colour of this silver. I think it pops really nicely off that watercolour background. So again, I'm just a little bit obsessed with the shine from this silver embossing powder. You can see the way the light hits it in the video, and it's even more beautiful in person as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stick these down. I'm applying double-sided tape onto the back of the silver piece. I'm going to stick this down flat to the card, and I want it to replace the section that I've cut out of my pattern paper. So I'm just going to lay this piece down, and then I'll figure out exactly where that silver strip needs to go. And this strip is just trimmed from one of the A4 patterned paper sheets. It was a piece with white and silver stripes, and I just cut apart one of the silver stripes. I've then applied some foam tape on the back of my watercolour panel, and then I'll just pop that up on the card base. I'm completely covering the black background, and I think it's quite a nice surprise when you do that with a coloured card base, so then when the recipient opens up the card, they'll see that it's black on the inside, and to enable me to write my message inside the card, I'll either use a white gel pen or I'll just add in a white piece of paper that's slightly smaller than the card base. So I'll go ahead and cut off any of the excess of that silver. I like to do this from the back of the card. I feel like it gives a slightly better finish and it's a little bit easier to get right up to the edge of where you're trying to trim to. I then wanted to add just a little something extra to this card, so the sequins came to the rescue, and I'm just using some glue dots that I have on a roll here, and I'm pressing a sequin into a glue dot, and then picking up the sequin and the glue dot at the same time and placing them down on the card. Once I was happy with where I had all of the sequins, I was looking at this card and I was thinking something's missing. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to finish it off, so as always in those situations, peel-offs to the rescue once again, and I just went ahead and outlined the edge of those raised watercolour panels. So one along the top and one along the bottom, and I feel like it really helps that silver to kind of pop and to shine more than it does already on its own, just because you've got that dark contrasting colour, and it just ties in the colour with the card base as well. So I pressed this down into place and then just trimmed off the excess, again opening up my card because I find it to be a little bit easier, and cutting from the back. And then those tiny pieces I will discard. I'm not totally crazy and I'm not going to keep those, but then these pieces I will actually put back onto the peel-off sheet. Okay, so on to the next card. So this is the card that I mentioned earlier that doesn't follow the same size as the others. This one is a square card, as you can see, and I've taken one of the pop-out shiny panels as my backing piece for this, and then I'm using a black card base. So I've trimmed it down to be ever so slightly smaller, or actually I tell a lie, I measured the panel first and then created my card to be ever so slightly bigger. Then I'm taking this sentiment piece and placing that in the middle, and that covers up those lines where you'd add some journaling. So I've sped you up for this bit and I love how this turned out. We have these pieces here in the kit that are designed to be banners. So they would be like bunting and you would fold over the top and attach it to a piece of string. But I decided that actually if I use it a slightly different way, I could get a different look and one that I'm really happy with. So I've sped this up because it was quite fiddly adding all of the thin strips of glue, or rather the thin strips of double-sided sticky tape. I think maybe it would have been a little bit easier with glue, but I'd added the sticky tape so I needed to get that backing off somehow. So you will see that I'm just working my way around this piece, and I tried to follow a format of having a mostly gold and then mostly white piece, so it had some kind of organisation to all these different patterns so it didn't look too chaotic. And I just worked my way around this hexagon piece, and I think it gives a really beautiful kind of starburst when it's all finished. So it's kind of closed up and you can't see the sentiment, and then you can pop it open and that sentiment reveals itself. Isn't that beautiful? I really, really like how this piece turned out. I think it would be nice to also add some twine in the background so you can tie a bow and keep it closed, but I just think it's beautiful. I couldn't stop playing with it and kind of opening and closing this like surprise pop-out star. Okay, on to our next card. For this one here, I've actually pulled a piece of mirror board from my stash that I received in a previous kit. I couldn't actually find a strip of silver that was wide enough to have a solid silver gift box using this die, so I decided to use some of the mirror card from my stash. And then I'm using this gold piece here and just selectively placing where I put this ribbon part of the die to make sure that it's completely solidly gold when I pull it out. I went ahead and cut 4 each of these, and you'll see on my card I actually only ended up using 3 of them, so I've got another one ready to go for another card. On screen I'm just using my Baby Blue by Tattered Lace die cut machine. That's simply because it is easier to lift up onto my desk and to use when I have some smaller dies. I'm still using my Big Shot, I still love it, and it's still my favourite die cut machine, but this one is really handy for fitting on screen as well. So now I have another piece of the vellum. I found that when I used the vellum previously, I found it a little bit difficult to make sure that I had really good edge-to-edge coverage, so I've actually cut this slightly bigger than my card base, and I'll stick it down and then trim off the excess. So again, just used my Creator Sticker machine. It is perfect for adhering vellum. If you work with vellum a lot, or if you work with a lot of small pieces, you should definitely take a look at the different ranges of sticker maker machines and the Xyron products. And I'll make sure I've got some of those linked in the description below as well. So I've added a popped up piece of black card. I've just created this strip and added some foam tape on the back, and then I'm applying some double-sided sticky tape to the back of the Happy Birthday ribbon. And I'm just laying that down over the top to make a self-adhesive ribbon, and I find that this definitely makes it easier for me to apply strips of ribbon across my card, and if that's something that you struggle with, I definitely suggest trying this. So I worked my way along applying that double-sided adhesive all over the back, and then I'll peel off that backing and just go ahead and lay that down underneath the black piece and over the top as well. And I'm just taking some time to make sure that those happy birthday words that are printed onto the ribbon are lined up exactly as I want them side to side. I'll just use my scissors to snip off the excess, and then I can just fold those sticky pieces round to the back of this card panel. Next I'm going to bring in those silver present pieces, and I'll arrange those on the black strip exactly where I want them, and then use a glue pen to stick those down in place. I decided that I would add them all flat to the card rather than using any dimension, as it was a little bit easier with those star pieces that have been cut out as part of the die cutting process. Once I've got all three of those presents stuck down in place, I'll then take the bow pieces and stick those down, again just using the same glue pen, running some adhesive along the back and then sticking those on top. The present die set actually also came with a tag, but I didn't use it for this card, but if you wanted to use it then you could go ahead and die cut that and add that on top as well. To finish this piece off, I wanted to add some more of those Nuvo drops, and I added them anywhere where the lines intersected, and then I realised on the bottom piece we didn't have many lines that intersected, so I just pretended. I kind of faked it with a few of those pieces, but you wouldn't be able to tell. So now for this card, I wanted to use this pocket piece. This is perfect for a gift card, and it has a sentiment on the front, but I didn't want to use that sentiment, so I cut a thin strip of the gold card and just replace that over the top. And that's definitely a great idea if you're trying to use a piece but you don't particularly like the sentiment that's included. You can always go ahead and cover it up. Here I have another one of those beautiful patterned pieces that definitely match the wallpaper my friend is going to have in her house, and I'm going to use that as the background piece, and then use this pocket foil piece, and then add into that one of these little pop-out pieces. I did have to trim this so it would fit perfectly inside, and I also went ahead and added a brad to the top. Is that what it's called? A brad? An eyelet, perhaps? Added an eyelet to the top to secure a hole punch, so I could add some ribbon through it. Then I have this coordinating add-on, which is a beautiful diamond piece, and I used another one of the coordinating add-ons to cut out the sentiment "You Rock." So I held that diamond piece in place with an acrylic block while I added some glue onto my sentiment, again just using a glue pen, and then just placed that down on top. So we've got the "You Rock" and then the giant kind of diamond or rock in the background. And then this is really cool because you've got that pull-out piece that you can lift up using the ribbon. So you could definitely leave this piece as is, but I really think it brings it up another notch if you add these little black blobs using your Nuvo drops. I really think it highlights that pattern, and I really like the way that it looks. I think I'm going to have to be careful to make sure I don't accidentally pack some Nuvo drops when I go and visit my friend's house and then cover her entire wallpaper wall with these dots. I'm not sure if she'd thank me for it, but I think it looks lovely. So on to card number 9. This is a shiny wedding card. I decided that I would make a wedding card because my boyfriend Darren was attending a wedding that I unfortunately wasn't able to make, and he actually stole this card and took it away and used it before I even had time to photograph it. So you'll notice that it is missing from the pictures on my blog, not because I didn't like it, but just because it was used before I had a chance to photograph it. So I'm outlining these silver stripes with some peel-offs. I used thicker peel-offs vertically and then thinner peel-offs horizontally, and again it's just another great way to kind of bring a little something extra to otherwise just a patterned paper panel. So I'm using this diamond pop-out piece and I'm popping it up with foam dots. I'm using the smaller ones and then I will stick that down on my card and use some stickers to spell out Mr. and Mrs. You'll notice that I've used the remainder of the stamp pocket that I used earlier for a shaker card just to stick those stickers along the edge so I can get the placement that I want, and it's really nice and easy. I again just buffed the finish of that card and then moving on to card 10. So we made it, we are at the final card, and this is another silver card. I used the polka dot background for this one and cut that down to be a card panel, and then added a banner with some foam tape. I'm going to use a piece of the grey velvet ribbon, and I'm doing the same thing that I did before, applying double-sided sticky tape along the back so I've got a self-adhesive ribbon, which for me is just a little bit easier to work with. So I'll peel off the backing tape on this and then wrap it around this card panel. And I'm just using the lines on my grid mat to help me line this up and get it nice and straight across my card. I decided to accent this piece in a similar way to how I use peel-offs, so I'm using this super thin strip of black ribbon and I'm just using a thin line of adhesive to stick this down. Because this is so thin, I don't have any double-sided sticky tape that is thin enough to go behind it, so I'm just using a thin line of glue and then I'll just press that down. Because I've already got one line of my ribbon stuck down, I kind of have a edge or a surface that I can push this up against and make sure I get it nice and straight across the front of the card. I'll then use some larger pieces of double-sided sticky tape just to stick that down at the back and make sure it doesn't shift. Once I'd secured both sides, I wanted to add another tag, so I brought in one of the pop-out tags and just some Tombow glue, and I'll stick that down onto the front of the card, just nestling it over on the left-hand side. So again, this tag has a sentiment on it, and the sentiment reads horizontally, and I wanted to use this tag vertically, so no problem, I'm just going to go ahead and cover it up with one of the other pop-out pieces. So I picked this piece here, it's almost like a label pattern, and I'll just stick that down over the top of this sentiment, and then I'm going to take another one of the diamonds, but this time I cut right up against that foiled edge so it didn't have the white border. To my eye, I just felt like it worked a little bit better this way on this card. You could definitely leave it as is if you didn't want to take this extra step, and then just use some foam adhesive to stick that onto the back. So I wanted this card panel to have some nice even dimension, so rather than using foam tape, which I definitely could have done, I decided to use a piece of fun foam instead. And this is a really great way to add dimension behind a piece and have it be really nice and smooth, and it's slightly thinner dimension than the foam tape that I use, which makes it even easier to build up layers and to still be able to fit this into an envelope. So I'm just using some wet glue on one side of the fun foam and pressing that in place, and then applying some more wet glue onto the other side, and then I can stick that down to the card. For this piece I'm using a black card base again, and just sticking that down so it leaves a little black border around this white and silver panel. So at this point I wanted to add something else, and I just knew I had to use another one of those bows. So again, I'm just doing the same thing. I've sped this up as you've watched through it once already. I'm just curling the bow pieces and then the tails of the bow, and then I'll use my foam dots to go ahead and stick this together and stick it down onto the card. I decided this time that I would add a sequin directly to the centre of this piece, so I brought in some more of that sequin mix and just used a small dot of glue to add one of the sequins and left that there in the centre. Okay, so that is all 10 cards complete. I'll do a quick recap and take you through them all again, and you can see they're so beautiful and shiny. I really enjoyed working with this card kit, and I'm sure you guys will too. And I think because there is so much included in this kit, I think that everybody's cards are going to look extremely different, so definitely keep an eye on the rest of the design team for their ideas, and also on the Love from Lizi Facebook group, where all of you Love from Lizi subscribers also post your creations as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Do remember to let me know in the comment section below which one's your favourite. You can also give this video a like to let me know that you like it, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Do remember that the Love from Lizi challenge is still ongoing. We have a new challenge on the 1st of every month, and they tend to be somewhat centred around the kits, but you definitely don't have to use the kits to participate. You can win a gift card if you're the randomly selected winner, and I'll have the link in the description. On screen right now are a couple more videos you might not have seen yet. You can go ahead and click on the thumbnails to go through to those videos, or click on the logo to subscribe to this channel. That's all from me. Bye for now.